Today is April 11. Ukraine Media Center confirmed starts its operation today. My name is Vasyl Samokhvalov, and our guest today is Andrii Nebytov, head of the Kyiv Region National Police, and we will be talking about 1 year upon the occupation. What's the current state of affairs? So let's start with 1 year upon the occupation. It's been 1 year that the north of Ukraine was liberated, including Kyiv region. The Russians entered in many places, and national police was investigating the facts of their presence and the aftermath. So can you give us some details in figures, some facts, please? Yes, as you mentioned, about 1 year ago, thanks to the heroic resistance of the Ukrainian people and the armed forces of Ukraine, the north of the country was liberated, and it allowed the law enforcement agencies to collect the evidences of the crimes committed against humanity, the war crimes, those committed in Kyiv region. We found out thus about Bucha, and all the international community found out about this, starting from the foreign journalists and ending with the heads of the governments of other countries, which is very important to us. During the occupation, the National Police of Ukraine was acting in a number of areas. First of all, they assisted to the armed forces of Ukraine by providing information, and also they took part in different operations, as well as in evacuation of population. And the main burden for the national police was the fact of the cowardness of the enemy. There was a lot of negotiations and agreements with the enemy. However, the evacuation convoys were shelled, were bombarded, the people were shot in the civil vehicles on the move, even with the kids, even with the elderly ones. Talking about figures, right upon the occupation, we created relevant investigation teams, and with the assistance of the National Police of Ukraine, we engaged the personnel from 7 regions that were coming to Kyiv region to collect the evidences in a more efficient and prompt manner about those crimes committed by the enemy in our territory. And as a result of that work, we checked more than 2,000 people that we communicated with. We inspected more than 171,000 vehicles and more than 75,000 private buildings. It was all necessary to understand the scale of the crimes committed by the Russian army, and also we needed the operational information for making decisions for further defense. As a result of those investigation actions, we documented 133,000 crimes according to the article of violation of the laws of war, and there were other crimes committed, such as those contemplated by the Article 110, attempt of infringing Ukraine's sovereignty and integrity, high treason, Article 111, 7 crimes, collaboration is 84 crimes, sabotage 113 crimes, planning, preparation of aggressive war, Article 258, and there was a terroristic act, six cases of terroristic acts, but mostly it was for Article 438, the instigation of aggressive war. It's more than 40,000 crimes. After the collection of primary information according to the Criminal Code of Ukraine through the prosecutor's office, the evidences are being forwarded to the Security Service of Ukraine. We cooperate in this area a lot with them, and in every regional department of National Police there is the investigation team responsible for investigation of war crimes. This is the priority for all the law enforcement agencies of Ukraine, not only national police. And recently it was confirmed during the Collegium of Law Enforcement Agencies of Kyiv region, which was headed by the prosecutor of the Kyiv region. So among the cases documented by national police, we issued the notes of suspicion to 41 persons. They are the Russians who crossed the borders of our country, the Russian citizens and collaborationists, and those who assisted to the occupational forces. Out of those 41 cases, we forwarded 34 to the court, and they are being considered. In fact, other cases are still being investigated, but mostly they are being investigated by their personnel of the Security Service of Ukraine. One of the aspects of the activities of the National Police of Ukraine is the identification of the bodies of the deceased Ukrainians. Today we identified 1,134 persons. They are the civilians that were killed by the occupational forces. And important aspects is that we investigated and found out that 717 of them were killed using small arms. More than half of those people were executed consciously. 309 people died as a result of explosion, and in case of more than 300 bodies, we could not identify the cause of their death due to the body's decomposition and to the fact that the medical aid was not provided in a timely manner. Unfortunately, we have 195 bodies which are not yet identified. All the necessary measures like DNA sampling were taken in their regards, so we're inviting and calling the families and those who see that their neighbors disappeared. Please report to the National Police. We collect any information. We would like to get any information to identify all the Ukrainians who perished during before the operation of the occupation. For the time being, there are still 279 people missing in action. Unfortunately, we don't have any information about them. There is information that some people are in Russian Federation. They were deported in a forced manner under the procedure of so-called evacuation, and we understand that those people are currently in prison and they are being added by the Russians to the exchange fund. So please report any information, because, for example, last case was when a person came back from Lviv and reported that they buried 3 people during the occupation in Borodyanka. They were all shot with the small arms, and that person buried them. So we executed exhumation and we identified the bodies of 2 of them. One was a local citizen of Borodyanka who was killed with the small arms, just like the majority of those killed in Borodyanka. During all this police operation, we identified 15 sites of mass burial. The biggest one accounted for 116 bodies. It was near the church of Andrii Nebytov in Bucha. The most of them died violently, but again, there are more sites that we identified, like torture sites in Bucha region. The people were tied, they were strangled, they were beaten by the clubs, kept in the pits, and then they were either executed using the small arms or by a shot in the head. So we identified 3 such sites. They were located near the headquarters of the Armed Forces of Russian Federation. There was, for example, children's camp in Bucha, which was occupied by Russians, or It was happening right in the positions where the heavy artillery was located. The local civilians were kidnapped from their homes and they were brought to those sites to be tortured and then killed. I would like to pay attention to the children during the deoccupation and active warfare in the territory of Kyiv region. 43 children were injured in Kyiv region, out of them 25 boys and 18 girls. There are also 38 facts of children deceased. The girls from 6 months to 17 years and 28 boys from 7 months to 17 years old. Also, for the time being, missing in action are 4 children. 3 of them come from the same family. According to the information that we have, during the deoccupation, that family was deported to Russian Federation in a forced manner. By forced manner I mean under conditions of constant shelling, with the restricted access to water or food. They were offered to leave for evacuation, to create a picture for their propaganda, as if our people were liberated and they wanted to leave for Russia. Under conditions like those, people undertook that decision to leave, and for the time being we don't know about their whereabouts. And we know that one of the children is abroad with one of the parents, and there is a claim from the other parent why the child left, and that is not the most complicated situation, and the military administration and the security forces, they work on that situation. The people who are responsible for their families, it's good that they were able to evacuate their kids from the foster homes in a timely manner. We were able to provide ensure their security. And I also want to draw the attention to the fact that there were 74 vehicles destroyed, the 70 vehicles of the National Police of Ukraine. 23 were completely destroyed and the rest were heavily damaged. Unfortunately, we have 6 police facilities completely destroyed and 9 more heavily damaged. We were working all year long since the 1st of April on all the occupied territories. Regardless the absence of communication, the activities of the National Police was re-established. Is the most important aspect, the ensuring of the population security in the areas which were deoccupied. Thank you very much. Just questions about a couple of more details. The successful and efficient work of the police in Kyiv region was used as an example in other deoccupied territories like Kharkiv and Kherson region. Can you please tell us more details how the Kyiv regional police was working in those deoccupied areas, what exactly they were doing and in what way? Yes, I can tell you in detail. Just like I said, we engaged 7 more regions. People were coming on a permanent basis to Kyiv. We found the place for their accommodation and billeting. They were the servicemen from prevention, the IED technologies, K9 operational servicemen and investigators. It helped us to efficiently and promptly collect all the information, and upon our initiative and the resolution of the military, we checked 495,000 citizens. We identified 16 collaborationists who were further on brought to liability. 15 persons were on the wanted list. We checked the vehicles, more than 171 vehicles, and 31 of those vehicles were on the wanted list too. More than 74,000 buildings were checked, and 17,350 were partly damaged. As to the work of the IED technicians, the police of Kyiv region, well, you know that demining operations involved the policemen from the National Police of Ukraine, along with the pyrotechnics of the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, and even our Polish colleagues were coming to us to support us, and they got this experience of demining such vast territories. So for understanding of figures, we inspected the area of 116 hectares in buildings, and in open areas 101,774,000 hectares. So police confiscated 633 artillery shells and 368 mines, 159 grenades for rocket launchers, and 189,000 kilograms of explosive substances. This is how we understand how densely contaminated are our areas with our territories with mines, and upon the end of the warfare, upon the liberation, still the areas remain contaminated. So this is what I'm saying about we have to start working today already. We have to start teaching children in school. We don't have to wait. We have enough technicians who can disarm and defuse those items, but we have to teach our future generations to be more careful so that they don't touch such devices. They should report immediately to the police or other special services, or otherwise just report to the adults. Good afternoon, Maria Shenkarenko, Ukrinform. How many items of small arms are still in the hands of the citizens, and how many items were returned to the national police since the beginning of the full-scale invasion? Yes, thank you. National Police in Kyiv region issued more than 20,000 items of small arms. I want to convince you that they're all accounted for. We understand that all those arms since the beginning of April, right upon the deoccupation, we started implementing measures with Mr. Alexander Pavluk, the then military governor of Kyiv region, aimed at the proper storage of those small arms everywhere in all the communities where there are voluntary formations, voluntary armed formations of the territorial communities. There are special storage rooms, and those servicemen, they only are issued weapons for fulfilling their service duties. And we accounted more than 3,000 items of the trophy small arms, which was taken from the arms of our enemies. So during the active phase of the war, while the war is still going on, the citizens who are engaged in defense of our country, they all should be armed. And our task is to have control over those arms and to ensure that those arms don't end up in the arms of the perpetrators. If there would be another offensive, will those small arms be reissued again to the Ukrainian citizens after they were turned back into the police? Well, there are people who, for example, they don't work directly with the defense of Ukraine, which are not a part of any military units or paramilitary units. They turn the weapons back into police, and in case of any complications, those arms will be reissued to them. I hope this year. However, it developed all of our units, I mean not only the armed forces of Ukraine, but other auxiliary defense forces and they are not the same as they used to be 1 year ago. Well, another question, many people forget that the Kyiv region borders on Russia. The drones, the shellings are still going on. What is the statistics of the casualties for the last year, and how does the police work with that? Yes, it's an important question. I would like to say that on the 10th of October, Russia switched to terroristic methods. They started destroying our critical infrastructure, so they won't do any harm to the military that way. They were only calling to produce damage on the civil population, to make the lives of the civilians more complicated. They were trying to use general frost, as they said. We all had to freeze just like Europe, according to their concept. But starting from the 10th of October 2022, according to our information, there were 147 shellings on the settlements of Kyiv region, including the civil facilities and the facilities of critical infrastructure. There were 26 incoming missiles and 18 UAVs. The air defense forces confirmed the destruction of 103 enemy targets, including 59 missiles. The most shellings were targeted at Bucha region, and unfortunately those strikes resulted in the death of 17 people and 77 more people were injured. Most of the casualties were in the city of Vyshgorod, 7 casualties and 31 injured. You remember there was an incoming missile between 2 5-story buildings, and there were 29 more in Brovary region. Some people just did not comply with the air raid alert signal, and they did not proceed to the shelters. And the Vyshgorod circumstances, they let us know that the communities should be, I apologize for those words, but they should be pressed on to be more diligent in case of air raid alerts. So there are police teams going to the dangerous sectors now who remind the citizens about the threat, so that the civilians proceed to the shelters. The police units, they know well where the shelters are, and they can assist all the civilians in getting to the shelters. Also, its documentation during the massive missile or UAV strikes. National Police gets engaged in documenting of all those cases, and the explosions in Vyshgorod and Obuchiv region, they tell us that you should better comply with the signals of with the requirements of the signals of the air raid alert. However, our air defense forces, they keep on working better, increasingly better, and I want to thank all the civilians in Kyiv region. We appreciate their input while providing information about the movement of the air targets. You know, the enemy uses the UAVs on low altitudes. They fly along the riverbeds, but people were calling at 102 telephone number, and I remember there was from 30 to 100 such calls, which allowed our servicemen which were stationed right by the side of the servicemen of air defense forces to pass the information on and to inform the mobile air defense teams to react properly to the air threats. Well, you remember, starting from the 10th of October, the scale when the scale of destruction was big, it was decreasing gradually. We were just calling people to comply the requirements of air raid alert. Don't let the Russians celebrate their victims among the civil population of Ukraine. Well, the last question, the Easter is coming. Will there be any new security measures implemented? Yes, there will be some for sure. The Minister of Internal Affairs, Mr. Klemenko, emphasized that tomorrow there will be a specialized meeting regarding the ensuring of security of our citizens. Just like during any holidays, we reinforce the number of patrol teams. The servicemen of the National Police of Ukraine will be present at the temples. It's a great Christian holiday, so please show respect. Please solve all your disputes within the legal field. In Kyiv region, I apologize, but there were some non-smooth, so to say, situations, and the religious communities that want to switch the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, they could not have general meeting and submit the relevant application to the Kyiv Regional Military Administration, and the policemen of the National Police, they may assist in security, in ensuring security to avoid any forced scenarios. Thank you. Joining us was Andrii Nebytov, the head of National Police in Kyiv region, and we will see you at 14 o'clock, and we will talk about the destiny of Russian assets in Ukraine and abroad. Thank you. See you shortly.